Welcome back to another episode of the In and Out of the Pocket podcast series with Jake and Grant, where the mental game is discussed and discovered. What's up, my man? What's going on, Jake?
Oh, man, just getting through the COVID and continuing to make the most of every day, Life is good if you make it so.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're at this again, man. It's good to see you, Grant. I'm real excited today because we're back with really someone that's very well known in the NFL world, in the football world, in the golf world, business world. Back east, he's one hell of a quarterback in his time. You can call him Rifle Ron, the Polish rifle. We all know him as Jaws. He's the man that got the gift of gab when it comes to football. He can tell you what's up. So it's a real pleasure and a huge honor to have someone I watched as a child growing up who, as we were just discussing, we kind of ended our careers with similar statistics. And, one hell of a quarterback, a great guy. Anybody I asked, they love Jaws. So, hey, Jaws, welcome to In and Out of the Pocket with Grant Parr and Jake Plummer. We're so happy to have you as a guest today.
Hey, Jake, great to be with you, and Grant with you as well. And, our paths crossed many times. I was doing television work, and we never crossed as competitors on the field. Obviously, I was a tad older than you. But I still remember the first time I ran into you. I think it was down at the in Florida at the College Football Awards Show, where we spent some time together down there, and obviously followed your great career that you had, with the Cardinals and the Broncos. So it's good to be with you and talking ball, man. That's what I love to do.
Well, we're going to get into it, man. We like to address in the pocket, where you go through as a quarterback, mental side of things, how to adapt to challenges. But then we're going to bounce out of the pocket too, because me. I couldn't stand in that pocket all day long, and you yourself also, man. When the pocket breaks down, how do you react? We get a little taste of what the real Jaws is like out of the pocket, but we'll save that for later. I got to start out with just your career and how you started in LA. You were a second-round pick. Didn't go as well as you wanted there, but then you got to Philadelphia. And I know every player, no matter how good you are, how much you work, you come across influential coaches. I have to start with this because he was, to me, one of the greatest coaches of all time. But what did you learn playing for a coach like Dick Vermeil that you've been able to carry on through life? Some of the most important lessons.
Yeah, it's funny to start out with Coach Vermeil, Jake, because he's still like a father to me. He was hard. He was tough. He was demanding. And I guess that's what parents do, right? They mold us as people. And Dick Vermeil was that guy to me. My dad had passed away my sophomore year in college. And, I guess as a young person, you kind of get lost along the way. And not that I was lost, but I didn't have that father figure. My mom was phenomenal, an unbelievable lady, but she wasn't my dad. She wasn't the hardcore, tough person that every young person needs. And I got to know Dick Vermeil actually in 1973 when you mentioned the LA Rams, who drafted me in the second round. And Dick Vermeil was the running backs coach with the Rams. That's the first time we had hooked up, not when I came to Philadelphia. That's kind of the reason I ended up in Philadelphia, because he knew what I could do. Now, I wasn't even playing in 1973. I was on the Rams roster, but John Hadle and James Harris were there. I was the third string quarterback, and, I saw zero action that year. But Dick Vermeil saw me on the practice field. He knew the talent that I had. And 3 years later, when he got the Eagles job, he traded for me. So that's where that relationship started. And Dick coached me hard. And to this day, he's always coaching me. Coaches never stop coaching, but that guy was that. If you look at someone that is, really a person we really respect and they're responsible for our success, for me, it would be Dick Vermeil.
Ron, I want to talk a little bit about Coach Vermeil, because when we talk about transformational coaching, to me, he's one of those coaches that stands out on kind of has that perspective of coaching the heart of the athlete. Like, it's not about just football. It's about getting to know the person behind the football player. What were some of the cool things you can share with Vermeil some of the things that he's done for you, or he had, specific things that he affected you in your development?
Well, I think it was pretty simple. We've always heard the statement, the 6 Ps. Piss poor preparation means a piss poor performance. And that was true. And with Coach Vermeil, it was always about preparation, being prepared for every situation that's going to come up in a ball game. And I think back to my career started, in the mid 70s, and then, come to Philadelphia, and now everything's video and got all these fancy cut ups and all that. It was all about the film study, Jake. And as you guys as quarterbacks, it's that preparation. So when you get in a ball game, there is nothing that surprises you. And if you prepare properly, you study properly, you have a better chance for success, from that pre-snap read when you break the huddle to once the ball is snapped and where you go with the football, your protections, your routes, your adjustments, all those things. I've always felt, and I turned into a post-playing career at NFL Films and ESPN with breaking down coaching tape, because that gave me the edge. Jake, maybe you had an edge because you could run. I was a statue in the pocket. I wasn't one of those guys. But I felt I'm going to beat you mentally, and no matter what it took, I was going to find a way to beat you. And how was I going to get that edge? You guys talk about that edge that you need to be successful, because the fine line between success and failure in the NFL is like that. I mean, it is so minute. And I've just always been a big believer that film study, preparation, and expect the unexpected really is the key to success. So you're never fooled, and you're always ready for whatever the defense or life can throw at you.
Great point there. Coach Vermeil, and the fact that he is, one of the greatest coaches of all time. All good coaches, I think, for me, at least my experience, they gave me the leash that I needed to be who I was, to be the leader that I was, to approach, practice, weight room, whatever it was. They kind of gave me that leash, but they also were there to guide me. Like you said, he's still guiding you today. Give us a little bit of a glimpse of the early on, the Jaws back in the day in Philly, when, in 80, you had a hell of a year. You lost in the Super Bowl. But what was your leadership style? Because as a quarterback, we both know, I mean, we can be the best in the world. It's the guys around you, how they relate to you, and if you can bring the best out of them. So what were some of your things you would do to endear yourself to those guys so they'd want to, fight and block the train for you that was coming at your head?
Yeah, I think the work ethic starts out as number one, Jake, as you know, and Grant, you played the position. You have to be the first guy in and the last guy out. And, we hear that about everybody. We hear that, oh, he's the first guy in, he's the last guy. You know what? That's BS. We know that. I'm telling you, when I was doing Monday Night Football, and you get a chance to really kind of look behind the curtain of great coaches and Andy Reid and Bill Belichick, when you spend 3 days with that team in preparation for a Monday Night Football game, you learn and you talk to people. And I found out there are a lot of guys that say, oh, yeah, my quarterback's the first guy in, the last guy out. That's not right. You start talking to players. This guy's shown up 10 minutes before the meeting. So everyone says that, but eventually it thins itself out, and those guys that are weak get weeded out. So, that's I've always felt, I had to be that cheerleader kind of guy, the hardest worker on the team, the tempo setter on the team, guy that's studying the tape, guy that's in the meeting room, guy that's taking the notes, all those things. Jake, you've been in those meeting rooms. Sometimes you got to tell you, hey, pick up your pencil, write this down.
Wake up.
They're leaning back in the chair, the guy leaning against the wall, hey man, I don't want you to miss that blitz. Pay attention. Running back coaches up there on blitz pickup period. So, I kind of was a guy that wanted to hold people accountable, and I had to do that. But when I came to Philly, it's 1977. The Eagles hadn't been in the playoffs in 17 years. I mean, we were a bad football team. It was run bad for a long period of time. And there was a game, and there were some games where the fans kind of got on me a little bit. You hear about 50,000 people booing you. When that happens, you hear it. So we're playing a game, and NFL Films still has this documented over at NFL Films. Coach Vermeil is wired, one of those NFL Films wires, and he goes, "Ronnie, get over here, get over here." And the fans are, they're booing, right? He goes, "I'm gonna tell you something. I'm in this city because those fans aren't going to make me change. Jake, Grant, if the coach doesn't put his arm around you and tell him you're his guy, there's always that little doubt in your mind." That really resonated with me. When the coach says, "You're my guy," those fans aren't going to change the quarterback here. If there's only one person who can change the quarterback, and that's me. And that meant a lot to me, that he had the faith and confidence in me. And literally from that point on, I said, this guy's got my back. He believes in me. And that kind of turned the light on.
Wow.
That's awesome, man. I love that.
Yeah. I love that. You know, I do want to get into preparation, but there's something that I didn't have a chance to share this with you before the show, Ron. But, you know, with my 13-year career as a quarterback, it literally started when I was 6 years old. My very, very first exposure was the Super Bowl game against the Raiders. That was the first time I can recall what professional football was. And you were a part of that experience. So when you think about preparation, did you have a routine that would get you locked in before the games and going to that Super Bowl game? Did you had to prepare differently, you know, to deal with all the emotions and distractions and the hype of the Super Bowl?
It's very difficult, but we were a team that was really focused. You know, we didn't win the Super Bowl, but it wasn't because we weren't analysts. You know, everyone can tell you what you did wrong. Vermeil worked you too hard. You guys, didn't have enough time off. You didn't enjoy New Orleans. The Raiders are out partying. That's why you guys lost. Well, come on. Everyone's got, they outplayed us on that given day. We beat them in the regular season. The night before, at our team meeting, and you guys know those team meeting, and it's a chance to talk if you want. Dick Vermeil ended that speech with, in this tomorrow night as world champions. That we felt we were going to win the football game. And that's because we felt we were prepared. We were a hardworking, overachieving team. That's who we were. We were a bunch of street fighters. That was how our team was built. We didn't have a bunch of number one draft choices that dominated. We were a bunch of guys that were going to give it everything we had laid on the line. So we lost the game. Certainly to this day, I still feel bad about it. Didn't win the Super Bowl ring, but I got one now because I was on the committee that hired Doug Peterson. So with Doug Peterson and Eagles winning a Super Bowl, but it's hard to get there. It's hard to win. I know a lot of great players. It's difficult.
Speaking of players and guys, you speak of that were with you during that journey through your NFL. Can you give us some of your favorite names of some of your favorite teammates, just like, or even an opponent that brought the best out of you, and just describe and say why you feel that way? Because when I think back on my career, I mean, it's hard to name maybe one or two, but I'm sure there are some that stand out.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, Jake, and people ask about the memories. What are the great memories? You get it all the time. Grant, you bring it up. What do you remember? And the touchdown passes. Yeah, there were some beautiful ones. There was playoff victories. There was a NFL record 99-yard touchdown pass to Mike Quick. All those things are not. I'm not discounting them, but when people ask me that question, I say my teammates and the coaches. There's this. You guys know this. There's a special bond in a football team. Oh, yeah. There really is a special bond, and I can't explain it to people. You guys experience it, so you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of people that really don't understand that bond, and those players that you use the term war. It's probably not the appropriate term, but it is like going to battle with your guys. And it creates a very unique bond that you can't really explain that to people unless you've lived it and been in that locker room celebrating victory or crying after a loss or hugging each other after great victories or even losses. So until you experience that, it's hard to explain what it is. But I do know this: when people ask me that question, what I remember are my teammates, my coaches, and the people that I worked with every single day, because they formed what I am.
Wow. Are there any guys that really stand out? Any teammates that just, you looked up to or were definitely inspiring? I know I play with a guy like Aeneas Williams. I mean, yeah. How can you really count yourself when you stack yourself up as a man and you look at Aeneas, you go like, oh God, I still got a lot of work to do. Yeah, are there any guys that just really were that influential in your life and really stand out?
It's kind of funny. I always kind of matriculated to the offensive line. They were kind of, those guys,
yeah.
They're the grunts, man. The old line guys,
Yeah, the fat backs.
That's and they're the most at least in my era, they were the most level-headed, keep the media away. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to play ball, and go drink some beer on Thursday at Attitude Adjustment,
Yes.
I kind of always kind of was hanging out with the offensive linemen all the time. And maybe just a little side story. In Philadelphia, in that era, the Phillies, the baseball team, and the Eagles, obviously the football team, shared kind of the same shower facility, sauna, whirlpool, blah blah blah. And Pete Rose was on the Phillies at the time. And when our seasons overlapped, Pete spent more time in our locker room than I think the Phillies locker room. And he always hung around the big uglies down
That's
there,
cool.
the offensive line. You know, he was one of those guys. And Pete's a street guy. I'm a kid that grew up in a steel town, you know, Lackawanna, New York. Everyone worked at Bethlehem Steel, and that's what they did. Offensive linemen, you know, they're the kind of grisly kind of players, those kinds of guys. So Pete would hang out there. I'd hang out. We just loved the offensive linemen. So that's how it was in Philly.
Beautiful.
It's great. Well, let's talk about adversity, because we've all, as quarterbacks, I mean, you have to handle adversity. And, you know, we all know it sucks to throw an interception, fumble, pick six. But when you had to deal with those type of adversities during the game, how did you overcome it? How did you wash that from your being to get prepared for the next series?
Amnesia. I think it's an attribute. It's an attribute that a quarterback or any player must have, a particular quarterback. Because when you play the highly competitive National Football League, it is highly competitive. You can lose every game. That's how competitive it is. And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to be embarrassed. You're going to be humiliated. The fans are going to boo you. It's the nature of the job you do. And if you let that bother you, you can't make it in the NFL. You got to develop a thick skin to play the position. So I felt one of the attributes I developed, because, hey, younger in my career, I was sensitive to all that stuff. But you develop an alligator skin, and you just forget about it. You got to move on to the next play. Coaches will tell you one play at a time. You can't do anything about the last play. The only thing you control right now is the next play. So that's how you have to focus. And I learned that throughout my career, that you just have to forget and move on. If it stayed in the back of your mind and haunted you, you're going to make a lot more mistakes.
It's kind of like life when you're navigating life as far as like day to day. You know, you can't worry about yesterday. You can't think too far into the future. You just got to be in the moment. And it definitely is a lesson learned.
You know, negative experiences mold us more than the positive experience, I believe. Yeah. How you deal with that adversity. And you know, we've all heard, hey, don't point fingers at anyone, because you know what happens? 4 point back. Right. You know, so, you know, hey, mistakes are made, learn from them and move on.
Big time. Well, and how was it, you know, as you were growing up through your career? I can only imagine when you talk about alligator skin, playing in Philly, that's a whole different crowd to play to, especially if you're not performing well. How do you deal with those distractions?
I love telling stories. What I learned with my work at NFL Films, a matchup show, ESPN, I still have an office at NFL Films. And my partner, Jason Jones, my business manager, does all this work for me and research work, you know, over at NFL Films. And Steve Sable used to always say, tell a story. People love stories rather than, you know, doing all this deep drilled down stuff. Just tell stories. So I'll tell you a story about the Eagle fans. We're playing, I think it was 1985. And I'm having one of those games where, and Jake, you know, things weren't really going the way you'd like them to go. And the fans are a little bit restless. And I'm standing on the sideline, and we're supposed to run out on the field. We just got the ball from the kickoff. And as 11 guys are running out on the field, I'm in with the other 10 offensive players. And all of a sudden, my coordinator, Ted Plummer, says, hey, Jaws, come back here. And I'm going, oh, shit, man. Now when I got to run on that field, I'm going to run out there alone, right? So now 10 guys are out there. I get to play. I go running on the field, and I hear the boos cascading, you know, from the 700 level of Veterans Stadium. I wasn't having a good day. They let me know about it. But I also knew this as well. When I walked in that huddle, what those other 10 players I had to line up and play with were thinking. I had 20 eyeballs on me when I walked in that huddle. I went 30 yards across the field, and the fans are booing. I know they were booing me. When I walked in that huddle, I looked around like this, and I looked at every guy, and every eyeball was pointing at me because they wanted to see how I was going to handle it. You know, what was that going to, what impact will that, what was it going to do to me? So I looked, and I had a big smile on my face, said, they still love me. And everybody cranked up. Everybody, so, you know, I didn't think about that. It just was a spontaneous reaction. We went 80 yards and scored a touchdown. I think because the guys were loose and relaxed and not worried about Jaws. You know, is he all right? Is he all right? Hey, let's go. We got to play the game, have some fun. They still love me.
You shifted the frequency, man. I love it. And stories. Here's one. I'm going to follow you up because my first live NFL action was in the old Veterans Stadium in Philly. I got thrown in the second half, and the ball was on our 2-yard line. And I'm like, oh, my God. And it was in the part of the stadium rounded, and it was loud. And they were saying some mean, vicious, vile things about me. I'm weighing a good 195, 6'2", didn't know what the hell I was doing. But when I stepped in that huddle, like you said, all 10 of those faces were looking at me. And I said, and, after seeing Larry Sanders going like this, and I'm looking at him like, what are you doing? He's like, eye of the tiger, baby, eye of the tiger. We're in Philly, right? So I said some choice words with a few expletives like, let's take this ball 98. And we went 98 yards. So Philly has always been a real special place to play for me. Like that blue collar fan that just wants to see toughness. I was respected there because I brought that, but I had a lot of great comebacks in Philly. And there's a few reasons, and I'll ask you that a little later, but how has it changed in Philly since you were the man and now Carson Wentz is the man? Like, what's it like as far as just like, I mean, I know we could probably deduce what that is, but tell me, how sweet it was back in the day and what's the difference now?
Yeah, it is different because, the stadiums now are so much more modern and luxury suites and high price tickets. And Phillies know that it was a 700 level, the people that were drunk, from 10 o'clock in the morning come in, to be hanging over the railing as you come in the stadium. They're drunk. And these are hardcore football fans. They're blue collar workers. And if they spend $25 for a ticket, they worked for a whole day for that $25. And they expected a performance out of you because that's just the way it was. They wanted you to win, number one. Number two, but they wanted you to lay it on the line. So that was it's a little bit different now, although fans are tougher, but it's not necessarily shot in a beer, guys. It's more a little champagne drinking going on in the stands. So
and they smell good.
Right. Yeah, not as crazy it was, I would say, during my era, but still pretty crazy. It is Philadelphia, and there's still a great passion for the fans. But I think the crowd has changed a little bit and a little more respectful of the players.
You bring up the next man up, which is pretty fitting because I wrote a book on it about a year ago. And I know that especially in the last couple of weeks, we've seen so many quarterbacks getting prepared, unexpectedly thrown in, Justin Herbert being one of them, and also Andy Dalton. But being the next man up is not necessarily waiting for your opportunity. It's sometimes you are the man and you actually have lost it. And now you have to stay focused to get prepared to be the man again. So when you were the man in Philly for all those years, and then Randall comes in and takes your job, how did you deal with that transition, and how did you stay focused?
I think number one, you have to have a team orientation, that the team comes first. And I've always believed in that, and I've lived it that way. And even in my business life, it's about team first. And I think as a quarterback, everyone enjoys being the man. You want to be the man, team leader. And all of a sudden, hey, Randall's drafted in the second round. I knew it's only a matter of time. That was like my 12th year in the league, and we're all smart enough to know how it operates. You're not going to. This game is a short period. As we all know, the average career is about 3.1 years. So, I'm in my 12th, 13th year, and they draft a guy in the second round who's an electrifying athlete. But I'm fighting like hell for my job. I am fighting like hell because I'm not giving this up. But eventually, the change will come. But it's hard to deal with because as a starting quarterback, and Jake, you have to have a great confidence in yourself in the NFL because it's just the nature of what you have to be. And you get yourself kind of motivated to take that role. And all of a sudden, you're no longer in that role, and it's hard to turn that switch off and say, all right, now I got to be supportive of, I go to Miami to back up Dan Marino and for a couple of years and a cup of coffee there, and you're kind of hanging out for a paycheck. But when you're the starter, you're all in. You're totally committed. You lay it on the line all the time. Now you're the backup. You've got to kind of back away because the last thing you want to do is the selfish and all that sort of thing. So you really got to, from being the guy to like, okay, I'm just going to be very meek over here now. That was hard for me. And I think it's hard for everybody because I'm an outgoing person. I'm a cheerleader. I'm all those things. All of a sudden, I was still a cheerleader, but I couldn't cheer for myself. So it was a hard transition. It really was. But if you put team first, it helps you get through it.
Perfect. Great point. It happened to me late at last year of my career where I got benched for a younger, sleeker model with a bigger arm, but didn't quite have all the leadership skills that I had already developed through my years. And so it was hard at first. I was kind of, I wasn't a good teammate for a few days. And then I realized like I can still be influential even if I'm not playing. Guys look to me for inspiration, for leadership. So yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow, but we both had good careers, played for a long time.
It's interesting, Jake, you said that because when I was first benched and lost my job to Randall, he started like 3 or 4 games and didn't play well. So I was inserted back in the lineup. And I got to tell you, I was playing free and loose, man, because I didn't give a damn. Well, they benched me. What are they gonna do? Shoot me? It's like it's like the worst. So I was playing free and loose, and I'll end up being the NFL comeback player of the year that year. I was just playing, slinging it, having a good old time, no fear.
Oh man,
I feel you. That last game of the year for me, I got in when Jay got a concussion before halftime and took him down and scored and was just free and loose. And my last throw of my career was a haymaker rolling to my left. Coach said, "What were you thinking?" I said, "I'm trying to make a play, Coach." That was always my response. Just trying to make a play.
Trying to make a
That's
play.
what we're here to do, right?
I love it, Jake. And you made a lot of it.
I tried, man. I got a little question that may throw you off, but this is from my weirdo brother who's just a mad, crazy sports fan. He's watched every game ever known to man in any sport, but his question is about the evolution of the game of football. And, it always starts at the lower levels and trickles up to the NFL, but why don't we see more innovation from coaches in the NFL? Think about a backfield that would be full of, say, just for hypothetical purposes, Vince Young, Cordell Stewart, and Taysom Hill. And they lateral, they throw, they run, they block. They can all do so much. Will we see that, or are we shifting towards that with guys like Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts now getting an opportunity? But these guys were passed over in the past. Do you ever see this happening, and why is there a lack of real evolution at the top?
I would disagree that there isn't that evolution. In fact, okay. I wrote a book. If you get a chance, read my book, seven games that changed the game of the NFL. And I took specific games going back to the early 60s to Bill Belichick's win against Mike Martz's offense in the Super Bowl. And I talked about the evolution of the game because we talk about stuff now. And I did a Patriots-Chargers breakdown. I found this film at a museum in New England, a film of a game between the Patriots and the Chargers, and Sid Gillman and what he did with the passing game. And so I'm looking at this tape. I think it was 1963 was the game. And there was a defensive end named Larry Eisenhower. And Larry Eisenhower took 2 steps forward and dropped into coverage. I quite honestly, I was shocked because I was led to believe that, they just line up at 3 yards in a cloud of dust. There was innovation back in the early days. That became a zone blitz a little later that Buddy Ryan made famous and all those types of schemes by dropping defensive linemen out. But sometimes we forget about the history. We don't study the game and research the game. But a lot of this stuff was done. And I think right now we're seeing the next evolution of the game. And I think, number one, the rules have allowed it. The rules have allowed high-scoring, freewheeling style of offense where you can't touch a wide receiver coming off the line. And somewhat in our day, and maybe when I started the league with Willie Brown and guys like that, they would maul you. I mean, they would hold you up and rip your face mask off and stick buckets to try to puncture your lung and all those things. That was football, right? That's what you'd say. That was football. You can't do that stuff anymore. I mean, you put a fingernail on a guy that's throwing the flag for pass interference. It's gotten way out of control, I think. I played a different game. You played a different game. The game is different now. You have to adapt and adjust. And now I'm seeing 4 and 5 wide receivers on the field, quarterbacks in shotgun, zinging it, slinging it, doing all these crazy things, and scoring's up on at the level it's never been before. So I think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing creativity and innovative coaches and doing things differently. I'm not sure it's making the game better, but it's making it more high scoring. It's almost like an arena football game now. If you get a stop in an arena league game, you win.
Exactly. Well, I got one quick question before guess we're going to get into out of the pocket questions, right? Right, Jake? There it is.
Yes, let's go for it, Grant. I'm ready. Yeah.
Well, before we get into it, I love asking this question because as quarterbacks, we know what it feels to be, in the zone, and just, when the ball comes off our hand, just the feel of throwing a perfect pass. So how would you describe in one word? You're in the pocket, pocket moves around, you moving up in the pocket, and you throw this beautiful, just over the shoulder in the corner of the end zone touchdown. How would you describe that experience in one word?
Exhilarating.
Aha. Sure is.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's the one word. Now I'll embellish it, because it may happen that one time at that one moment, but you've worked on it 1,000 times. In the off season, making that throw, and practice making that throw, you may work on it 1,000 times just for that one opportunity. And when you're successful with it, you go, that is exhilarating.
Yep.
Yes. And it goes on the scoreboard in the game. That's the great part. Yeah. Counts. Yeah. Yeah. That's why that preseason was hard for me, man. It was like, this isn't real. This is fake ball. Like, what the hell? I want to play where it matters.
Yeah. No, there's no standings. There's no records.
No.
We're all 0-0 in another month.
No. Well, hey, the pocket's breaking down, so we've got to bounce out with a few quick questions. You can answer them as quick and easy as you want here. Favorite concert that you've ever attended?
John Bon Jovi.
Oh, yeah, man. All right.
By the way, John, for a few years, John Bon Jovi was also my business partner. We had owned the Philadelphia Soul of the Arena Football League. So, I'd go to all John's concerts, and we would have a blast. And John is not only an obviously tremendous entertainer, he loves football. Our only problem is he's a Giants Patriots fan, so we didn't always see eye to eye on that.
Okay, then now how about your favorite sports movie?
Rocky.
All right.
Yeah, Philly guy. Yeah,
I had the Tiger, baby.
Yeah.
You love to golf, right? So
Yep.
Tell me who's your the other 3 people joining your foursome. Name the 3 people that you would just love to golf with all the time.
I've always idolized Arnold Palmer. I thought he did for the game of golf. Talk about Tiger and what's happening now in, say, basketball or baseball to make it so fan friendly and people want to watch it. I think Arnold Palmer was a guy that I'd love to have in my foursome. I would probably say Tiger Woods and Nancy Lopez, a great female golfer. I'd like to have kind of a good group of people and also have a lady in the group as well.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Next question. People ask me why you had such success in Philly coming from behind doing this and that. I said it was the cheesesteak sandwich. Every night before game, we go down to Pat's, but there's Pat's, and then across the street, I think is Andy's, right?
Geno's.
So which one did you go? Geno's. That's it. I'm sorry. I missed that one. Which one were you akin to, Pat's or Geno's?
Now, I'll make this clear. I don't want to denigrate any one of them because I've been to both many, many times, usually about 3 a.m. in the morning when it's hard to decipher what you're better. You need something in your belly.
I love it.
But if you really want to know my feeling, I'll say Geno's.
Okay. All right. Well, I would go to Pat's, get 2 with pregame. That was my pregame meal night before games. But
with or without, W-I-T. With or without.
Yep. With. And they get mad if you didn't know, man. You better know your order.
Right.
You're going to get kicked in the ass. All right.
Don't mess with South Philly, Jake.
No, don't mess with it. I know that. Okay. 2 more quick ones. What are your grandchildren? What do they call you? What's their nickname for you?
Grand Jaws.
Grand Jaws. I love it.
There are no other Grand Jaws. I know that they monopolize that.
That's awesome, man. Okay, the last question I got for you, I want you to be Nostradamus for us and take us 20 years from now. What's football going to be like? What will we be watching? I know you may be right or wrong on this, but tell me what you think.
Well, I've seen, 40 years of change in the NFL, and I think there'll be big changes in the next 20. I think you'll see probably lighter players, faster players. The passing game will be absolutely paramount. I don't know how much running will actually take place in the future of the NFL. I think it's going to be a passing league because fans like the excitement of the passing game, like we all do as quarterbacks and
right.
Talking about it right now. But I think you see lighter players, more high-scoring games, and a lot more passing.
Cool.
I
like it.
Well, I have one question. Grant. I have one more, just one question.
Bring it on, Grant.
So, if you were to transform yourself into today's quarterback, any starting quarterback, who would that be? And what coach would you want to play for that is current right now?
if I had a quarterback that I would have liked to play the game like, it'd be Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, even a Drew Brees, guys that were cerebral and understand the game. And I don't think neither of those guys have great physical talent, yet they're, first ballot Hall of Famers and great players because they work their ass off to get good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just committed themselves. And you guys know, if you're gonna be great at the quarterback position, it's not playing great on Sunday. It's all those other days where you put the time in to get better, study the tape, lift those weights, all the things that you have to do, to show up on Sunday and look good. There's a lot of time that puts in. And guys like Peyton and Drew Brees, and there are others. I don't want to just discount other players, but those two guys stand out to me as overachievers, guys that took their God-given talent and just made it so much better. So I would say those two guys. And actually, a coach, that's an interesting question, but I would probably, not because they're the defending world champions, but I know this guy very well, Andy Reid.
Yeah.
And Andy just has a way with people. And you would think Andy at his age right now would be kind of an old school, pound the rock kind of guy, mixing the play action, a little old school football. He's the most creative coach in the business right now. So I love guys that are able to change their thought process, do things differently. And again, maybe it made us, when you asked me about where do I see the game in 20 years, Andy's gone all for speed and certainly had an incredible impact on his football team, particularly in the Super Bowl when you can score that fast. So I would say Andy Reid would be a guy that just be cool to play for. And he seems to have I know him well. He's a great people person, and players love to play for him. And you guys know that's something you don't always hear. They want to play for the guy. They wanted to win at Super Bowl, not for yourself, obviously, but they wanted to win it for Andy Reid. They wanted to get a guy that has 200 plus wins in the Hall of Fame. So, and they did.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's all I have.
I get bonus points. I get bonus points, Jake.
You did great, man. I love it. I think the two guys you named, Brees and Manning. I mean, geez, like you said, overachievers. They're amazing. I always marvel at how slow the game looked for them at times and how they just knew where to go all the time. But great answers. Man, Jaws, we're out of time here, man. And it's been a true pleasure to hear you give us your energy and passion and tell us about some good stuff. We love hearing you on TV. It's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Jake, so great to be with you. Grant, you as well. Let's do it again down the road, man. This was fun.
Let's do it.
We would love to, man.
Awesome.
All right, be safe, guys, these crazy times.
You bet.
All right,
Thanks,
Grant,
Ron.
Jaws, take it easy.
You got it. You got it, man. Thank you.
See ya.